1079 KBPI. It's Danger Dean with the Big Bad BPI Night Show, and honored to have on the show the one, the only, the legendary Gene Simmons. Gene, how are you today?
I'm deliriously happy. How about yourself?
Hey, any better, I'd be you, my man.
You are a powerful and attractive man, I have to say.
You keep saying nice things like that, and you and I are going to have a friendship for life.
All right, settle down. Don't get excited. You know your heart.
Okay. Thank you for grounding me. I appreciate that. You've got a fascinating family story. Your mother survived concentration camps in Germany. How did that help shape your worldview?
You know, it's a serious question because we usually like to joke around and do that. But my mother was 14 years of age when she and millions of others, by the way, were caught in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. And Nazi and Germany must be put together, not by the Nazis or the Germans, but together. Because during that time, the entire nation went insane. And my mother at 14 saw her whole family, my family, viciously killed, starved, and tortured. And through my mother's eyes, she survived, thankfully. And through her eyes, the wisdom that she had, she's always been my moral compass. And her philosophy has always been every day above ground is a good day. And, I was born in Israel, and in the early days, 6 months after the country was born. So there was no infrastructure. There were dirt roads and, not much to look at. I never heard of television. Literally, I'd never seen or heard of it. When we came to America and I saw my first TV, honest to goodness, I thought there was a guy inside a box talking. And I didn't know what a TV was. And, in those days, televisions were huge, 6 feet long. On one side was liquor or whatever people had. On the other side was a stereo. And when I came to America, I didn't understand what people were saying, but I remember one of the first images I saw, I couldn't believe it was a guy, good-looking, muscular guy, flying through the air with some sort of cape on his back, and he was flying without a plane or anything. He was flying under his own power, and my jaw dropped. At 8.5 years of age, I just didn't understand it. And then slowly, I started to realize that America is not only the promised land, it's the land of dreams. It's the land where anything can happen to anybody, even if you're a first generation legal immigrant. And I hasten to add legal because there is a difference. And I am living proof that the American dream is not only real, but continues. You're looking at them.
Well, you would go on to graduate with your bachelor's in education, which I didn't know that. Were you ever a teacher?
I was. I taught sixth grade in Spanish Harlem. I wanted to give back, but 6 months, I always had the side band trying to write songs and do that with Paul. And within 6 months, the band got signed to a record deal. And then shortly after that, within a year and a half, we were playing Anaheim Stadium.
Wow.
This is the days before digital cell phones or MTV or any of that. We had no hit records, no nothing. In those days, rock magazines is the only way you became known if you didn't have hit singles. And something happened. America just, all of a sudden got curious about this band. And then within a year and a half or so after that, for 7 years in a row, 77, 78, 79, we were the number one Gallup poll group on the planet, ahead of the Beatles, Zeppelin, and the Bee Gees. It was unbelievable.
That's incredible. Where did your love for music come into play?
When I first came to America, we didn't have a radio where I came from. I know this all sounds like, get out of here, you're exaggerating. No, in actual fact, we were dirt poor, lived in a one-bedroom with rocket holes in the bed. There was only one room, and rocket holes because in Israel, there was always war. And when we came to America, we had a little radio, so constantly turned it on day and night. And the first music I heard was Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and all that. And I got to know Little Richard later on in life, which I thought was such a strange idea, coming from nowhere, listening to the music, and then actually, you know, talking with Richard. But Chuck Berry, strangely enough, changed my perception of music and everything. He just like lit the fire in my belly, and all of a sudden I remember, you know, moving, shaking up and down to the music, even though I didn't understand the words. And irony of all ironies, the Berry family asked me to do the eulogy for Chuck Berry at his death with the open casket. And you can YouTube it, you can see it. I was so overcome by emotion, you know, my voice was shaking. I just couldn't grasp the idea that a little kid who came from nowhere heard Chuck Berry for the first time, got into my own bands, and Berry influenced the Beatles and the Stones and Hendrix and everybody else. And here I am doing the eulogy for Chuck Berry's funeral. It was unbelievable.
What an honor.
Yeah.
We've got Gene Simmons on the line. Your first band ever, The Missing Links. You still keep in touch with any of the members of the band?
No, they've gone on to, you know, have their own families and stuff. Sadly, my childhood pal, Seth Doug Ramagian, I used to sing Everly Brothers harmonies and early Beatles. He was my harmony buddy. He sadly passed.
Sorry to hear that.
And another guy in the band, Danny Haber, who loved the Byrds and the Beatles and all that, unfortunately passed when a truck hit him out of nowhere. So, you know, life is very strange. You're busy making your plans, but life is actually what happens to you while you're busy making your plans. No, I haven't kept in touch with them, sadly.
Well, early on, you sold comic books to make ends meet. Are you a
Yeah.
comic book fan?
Oh, I could bore you to tears with minutia. And in fact, I was such a fan that Marvel eventually had, you know, the Kiss comics, which were the biggest selling comics they ever had. And Stan Lee, who created, literally, or co-created all the characters, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Spider-Man, you know, like all the superheroes, Thor, just out of his imagination, the Hulk. And so here he is on a plane with Kiss going up to Buffalo, New York. We had this bright idea that we would take our blood and pour it into the printing of the Kiss comics so that our DNA would actually be in the Kiss comics. And on the plane, I tortured Stan by letting him know that I used to call his secretary, Flo Steinberg, at the office when I was 13. Let me speak to Stan. I want to talk, you know, pretending to be a grown up because I wanted to talk to Stan Lee. And strangely, when I was a kid, even before that, I literally got a postcard from Stan Lee signed by him, and it said, "You will do great things." I didn't know him. I didn't mention, just out of the blue, I got that, and I'll never forget that. And it's one of those things I try to keep in mind whenever, you know, I get an inquiry, an email or something. I always try to be kind and email back something that's inspirational for that person so that they can, you know, wake up and kind of take a deep breath and go, wow, the world is kind of good.
I love that. Well, you, Gene, are famously sober, which is, you know, being in the rock and roll industry. How have you been able to combat pressure that I'm sure you faced throughout your career?
Well, in the English language, the word no exists. It's in the dictionary. I've never been high or drunk or smoked cigarettes because, you know, if you look around, anybody who's high is an idiot. There's nothing witty that's going to come out of anybody who's drunk. You're not going to say anything witty or smart. You're probably going to throw up on your girlfriend's shoes that she just bought. And that night, when you want to get intimate with her, if you had enough to drink, your schmeckle is not going to work, buddy. The next day, you're going to have a headache. You may not remember. And all that costs money. So I don't get it. By the way, I would understand the allure of drugs and alcohol and even possible cancer-causing cigarettes if they made you richer, better looking, lived longer, made your schmeckle bigger, on and on and on. But none of that stuff happens. There is no positive side. Nothing.
Well, that I would agree with you 100%. I'll be 3 years no alcohol this summer. So to me, that is huge.
It doesn't work while you're in that state of mind. It's Jekyll and Hyde, and then people who indulge think that, well, I didn't remember. I'm sorry. Yeah, you just killed 3 people, buddy, in your car. Well, I don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, but that's no excuse. If I was in charge, there would be no excuse for either being high or drunk and committing a crime that hurts people. I would, to the fullest extent of the law, punish them, whether you're straight, because getting high or drunk is a personal decision. While you're straight, you're deciding to do that, and I think there should be repercussions.
Well, I think that is very noble. I think that's awesome. Your philanthropy work should be celebrated. You're an advocate for Child Fund International. You've sponsored over 140 children.
1,400.
1,400 children.
Yeah.
That is
Zambia, Zimbabwe, places where there's very little other than water, and these kids can go to school, and at school they can have as much food as they can ingest, and their mothers, often single mothers, because the fathers just run off, whether you're married or not. That's what they do. They impregnate women and then they move on, because birth control isn't commonplace in third world countries. So these kids grow up malnutritioned and not thinking about education. And I try to make a difference, so I buy them clothing and food, but only if you go to school. If you don't go to school, you don't get fed.
We're talking with Gene Simmons. You also helped found the Children Matter. How important you feel it is for celebrities to use their voice for social purposes?
Well, you think of it, life is an accident, where you're born and what your circumstances are. If you're lucky enough to have talent or to have access to money, that's a blessing. I don't know how else to put it. You could have been born and not have access. You could have been born in North Korea, or China or Africa, or places where there's hardly any chance to do well. So you're born in America, where you cannot fail. You literally cannot fail. You can declare chapter 7 or chapter 11. So if you have money that you don't need, trust me, you don't have to go to Vegas. You don't have to have that extra vacation. No, you don't need that extra TV in Junior's room. You don't need that. You can get away. You can get along just fine. You take that money and you try to help local charities. You don't have to do it through an international one. There's plenty of need, plenty of folks in your neighborhood, single mothers especially, who, bear the burden of raising a child and trying to earn a living, make their life a little bit better. Because, by the way, if all of us, every person, all 8 billion people of us on the planet, made the world just a little bit, just like a fingernail better, imagine how amazing this world would be.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. We're chatting with Gene Simmons. We do appreciate your time. Let's wrap it up with some fan questions, if you're okay with that.
You bet.
Awesome. So Patrick, he wants to know what it was like to have such a cool mom.
There is no substitute. Fathers run out on their families. Moms would throw them. As a matter of fact, my mom, when I was a little kid, I didn't understand what she used to say. She would say, "You don't know how much I love you. I would throw myself in front of a bus for you." And I throw yourself in front of a bus. Well, you'll get hurt. I didn't understand it. And once you have your own kids, then you understand it. That's when you understand that you're here and your purpose in life is your kids. And my mother's philosophy was always, every day above ground is a good day. No matter what you're complaining about, you live in America. Today it's raining. Tomorrow sunshine is coming out. It's going to be okay.
It's a great philosophy. Patrick also wants to know what happened with what happened on your date with Cher.
Well, we moved in together and lived together for a few years. That's what happened.
It led to bigger things. That's what you're saying.
It led to Diana Ross, and we lived together for a few years, and then I met Shannon, and we've been together for 41 years. I've
That
been around this earth a long time.
that is incredible. 41 years, man. Congratulations.
So far, so good.
We're chatting with the legendary Gene Simmons. Seth wants to know, does the band switch set lists every night, or is it set forth for the whole tour?
No rules. Good question. With Kiss, you basically had to plan it out because you had to have cues for the computers to put bombs going off and flares and all that. The Gene Simmons band is really flexible. Somebody could yell out, "How come you don't do Spit from the Revenge record?" Obscure song. We look at each other, we go, "Can we do it in the key of G? Yeah, let's go." Boom, and you do it.
That is awesome. We love it. Finally, Hunter wants to know, what was your most memorable concert or performance with Kiss?
I have to say it was the very first Kiss concert, New Year's Eve, New York, 1973, 70. Yeah, it was New Year's Eve of 73, 1873, now that I think of it. And we were fourth on the bill. Our first record had yet to come out. It was Kiss, Teenage Lust, Iggy Pop, and then Blue Oyster Cult. And within the third song, Firehouse, I was already spitting fire then, but I put too much hairspray in my hair. I caught fire.
Oh, no.
And they put the fire out and everything. But the fans in the audience who didn't ever hear of this band went insane, stood up on the chairs and started, whoa, 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 kind of like tribal stuff. And then 2 or 3 days later, Paul and I would always go down to 8th Street and 6th Avenue in New York City. They had an international newsstand where they would get overnight the music papers from England, New Music Express, all those things. And there it is on New Musical Express cover, because they covered what was going on New Year's Eve around the world. There on the cover before our first record is my pretty face in makeup going, "What is this? Kiss rocks this, so and so," out of nowhere. I was stunned.
Started everything, man. Started everything.
Yeah.
Well, Gene, it's been an absolute honor. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay.